Mara's town never seemed to wait. Its streets were narrow and cracked, lined with houses that sagged as if burdened by invisible weight. Even during the day, sunlight seemed weak, unable to push the long shadows from the alleys. The air was always still, almost heavy, like it carried memories that no one wanted. Windows stared blankly, like eyes without life. Her family was kind in their way, but distant. Her mother worked long hours at a nosy office, returning home exhausted, silent. Her father often sat at the kitchen table, staring at papers or muttering under his breath, lost in his own thoughts. Her younger brother moved through life untouched by the heaviness Mara carried, laughing freely at things she couldn't feel. At school, Mara tried. She joined clubs, sat at lunch tables, smiled at jokes she barely understood. None of it mattered. Whispers followed her like shadows. Faces turned away. Invitations never came. She learned quickly that no effort could make her part of their world. One day, Mara dropped her notebook in the hallway. Pages scattered. She bent to pick them up. Someone laughed a sharp, cruel sound. No one helped her. She felt heat rise to her cheeks. Tightness in her chest made it hard to breathe. She collected the papers silently, pretending she did not exist. That moment stayed with her for weeks, a reminder of how small and invisible she felt. Her room became her sanctuary. The walls were pale, the floor cold beneath her bare feet. She would sit for hours, pressed against the wall, watching shadows twist in the corners, bending, stretching, reaching. Sometimes they seemed almost alive, waiting for her to join them, and she imagined that maybe if she stayed still enough, she could become one with them. Internal thoughts: why do they move so easily while I sink? Why does everything hurt so much? Why am I not enough? Why does the world keep going while I remain here, trapped in my own shadow? The mirror came from her grandmother's old house. It was ornate, gilded, and heavy with history. At first, Mara ignored it, thinking it was just another piece of furniture. But slowly she noticed flicker shapes moving just beyond her sight. Sometimes, it felt as if the mirror watched her before she even saw it. One night, she stood before it for hours. Shapes formed behind the glass, hollow-eyed figures, mouths twisted into unnatural smiles. They moved when she blinked, always returning to their place. She reached out, fingers brushing the cold surface. The glass rippled under her touch, almost like water, almost alive. Whispered thoughts echoed in her mind. You are too much to heavy leave this world. The feelings pressed into her chest, filling her ears with emptiness, telling her to disappear. Mara wanted to turn away, but she could not. The mirror promised something she had never felt before release. Mara stopped going to school. Teachers' voices became distant hums. Friends' laughter became gray static. Her mother begged her to eat, to talk, to see a doctor. Her father tried reasoning. Mara only nodded silently, drifting further into herself. At dinner one night, her mother said, "You've barely touched your food, Mara." "I'm not hungry," Mara whispered. Her mother sighed. "Please talk to me." Mara stared at her plate. The mirror called from the hallway, promising release. Shadows in her room grew bolder. They reached out, brushing her skin, whispering, coaxing her toward them. Attempts to reach out failed. Her best friend called and came by. Mara did not answer. Each failed attempt left her more hollow. Internal thoughts: I'm too much. Maybe if I let them take me, I'll finally be free. Maybe I belong in the shadows, where nothing can hurt me anymore. Dreams became Mara's sanctuary. She dreamed of a black lake behind the woods. Its surface was perfectly still, reflecting a sky she could not name. Her reflection smiled at her in a way she never could. In one dream, she stood at the edge of the lake. Toes grazed the water. Cold ripples licked her skin. She jumped. The water swallowed her, pulling her down. There was no fear, no pain, only quiet, only emptiness, only comfort. Another night, she dreamed of a forest where the trees whispered her name. Branches stretched like fingers. Leaves shivered, scratching the air. Shadows moved between the trunks. Mara ran, her feet sinking into soft soil. Something followed her close, patient. She could feel its presence. And yet, she did not run fast enough. It caught her in its cold embrace. Calm washed over her. She woke with the memory burning behind her eyes. In another dream, she walked the town she knew, but everything was distorted. Streetlights bent into strange angles. Houses leaned impossibly. People moved like ghosts, silent and hollow-eyed. She wanted to speak, but no sound came. The shadows whispered in that world too, calling her name, telling her to step into the darkness. Mara began to sketch her dreams. Jagged shapes, faces with hollow eyes, hands reaching out. Her pen trembled, guided by something unseen. Pages filled quickly. Her eyes dark, her hands shaky. Internal thoughts: I can almost feel it calling me. Maybe if I stay long enough, I'll belong somewhere I can rest. Somewhere nothing hurts. Somewhere nothing waits for me to fail. These dreams began bleeding into reality. She saw glimpses of the lake while awake, felt its cold press against her feet, even in her bedroom. Mara remembered sitting in math class. Numbers swirled into meaningless shapes. A classmate tapped her shoulder. Hey, wanna sit with us at lunch? Mara wanted to say yes. Words stuck in her throat. She shook her head. The smile faded. Her father once tried to teach her to ride a bike. She fell. He laughed nervously. We'll get it next time. Mara's lips twitched, but the smile did not reach her eyes. She never tried again. She walked the streets alone. Leaves rustled under her feet. A crow caught above. Streetlights flickered, casting long shadows. Each shadow seemed alive, bending toward her. She shivered, pressed her arms against herself, and quickened her pace. She would sometimes sit by the abandoned train tracks, listening to the distant rumble of freight cars, imagining that the darkness between the rails could swallow her whole. The wind whispered to her, carried 1,000 imagined voices, half warnings, half invitations. Memories weigh heavily. They reminded her of all the ways she failed at being seen, at being wanted. Every ignored smile, every whispered insult, every day she felt invisible built upon itself into an unbearable weight. The house was silent. Shadows clung to corners, moving slowly. Mara approached the mirror. Her reflection was no longer hers. Hollow eyes, twisted smile, darkness pool, where her soul had been. The shadows rose, curling around her like smoke. She felt no fear, only calm. The weight in her chest lifted. Emptiness replaced it, and it felt like freedom. Internal dialogue, finally it's time. I'm ready. She knelt, whispering to the dark, take me. I'm ready. The shadows embraced her. The next morning, her parents found her on the floor. Eyes closed, faint smile, silent at last. The mirror remained. Shadows moved in its surface, twisting and flickering. Passers-by swore they heard soft whispers. You are not alone. The darkness waited, patient. Streets held shadows growing heavier every night. For anyone unseen, unheard, the mirror promised relief. Waiting, patient, for the next soul.